Hello, good morning, folks. Welcome once again to our CCC Kinstsugi podcast, a place where we hold space, hold up mirror, and hold hands together as we journey towards healing. Today's podcast is focused on the wounding of love. Um, this is part of the one of the chapters in the book Unshakable. Love is something that we have enjoyed as being part of our innate freedom, being born in the image of God. So, no, as you would notice, no one taught a child how to love. A baby, as early as their once they become conscious of their environment, has this natural, this innate need of being connected, being secured, enjoy mama's bosom, enjoy the warmth of those who provide care for them. I would call this innocent freedom to love. Um, the smile that they give you as the provider of love, the way they giggle and the way they're willing to be tickled, the vulnerability that they have, as the nakedness and with all of the weakness that they have, it's also perfect, a perfect point in time for them to give and receive love. Nobody taught them how to do that. But welcome to this imperfect world. As we grow, we tend to lose this natural sense, this freedom to receive and to give love unconditionally. Uh, some people hurt us. Some people change the definition of unconditional love to something that's more conditional. Our ability to connect with other is tainted by people's agenda. Sometimes we were, based on the kind of environment we have, we were taught that to love or be loved, it has to be something that would give others in return. Um, so now the language of love that was given to us originally, the unconditional love, because of our experience with those who provide care for us as early as our, childhood could remember. Um, for example, you can only be loved if you behave well. You can only be loved if you are pleasing to your parents or to your family members. And this culture continue in school. You're only adored if you are someone who is top of your class, someone who could deliver, someone who could achieve things. And then this continues in our work environment. It continues in our community. It even continues in the church. Sometimes you have this theology that if you are a bad person, maybe even God um, won't love you. So the idea of this unconditional love that we've been enjoying as a child could dramatically change based on the environment that we live in, and not mentioning the kind of heartaches that we experience, the kind of rejection, the kind of betrayal and abandonment as a child growing up. As we cope, in order for us to survive, sometimes we have to change the way we see the world. But the path towards healing is, as Jesus said, unless you be converted like a child, you will not enter or see the path towards the kingdom of heaven. So, friends, today we will try to navigate and try to see if we can find our way path to discovering or rediscovering our innocent freedom to love. Today we have a guest, special guest for you. Rod Hartle is um, one of our Kinstsugi trainees. Welcome, Rod. Thank you very much for joining us today. Um, Rod is very much willing to take us um, down the path of his own navigation as he navigates this trying to rediscover um, the innocent freedom that we were given as a child. We were born in God's image. Rod, how are you today? Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation to join the podcast and to learn more about me, just me.
Wonderful, wonderful. We have um, maybe a limited time. I'd like to talk a lot of things, that would connect us even more. Rod and I think, share the same passion. Rod is an avid, cyclist. When I grow up, maybe I can do what he does. But today we will be talking about some of the wounding, if you may. Um, and Rod, can you take us to um, maybe some of the struggles you are experiencing right now that would help us connect things with some of your childhood wounds, if you may.
Yes. As an adult, I am seeing more through exploring the Kinstsugi as to how my childhood of sexual abuse and being bullied by my older brother, that I would never measure up to his abilities. That's how I remember it starting. I was. As the middle child. He was the older child, 3 years older. Uh, he had a photographic memory, and so through the domination that he would use or leverage against me, physical stature, verbal, and then also through the physical sexual abuse uh, that I was losing value, self value, and then struggling in later years and over the decades, um, not really understanding how deep all of this went, um, to where I would subserviate my own needs or self worth to other people, uh, really needing them to affirm my own view of myself.
Wow. So, based on that intro that you gave us, do you mind taking us to how is this background that you have shared with us um, impacting or influencing the way you live your life right now?
Right now, it is not wanting other people to see inside of me very close because it terrifies me. I don't feel safe. You were mentioning cycling. Just 5 weeks ago, I had an accident on my bike and I'm in the hospital and I can't do anything and I feel so totally helpless. um, Fractured hip, broken bones, but it also, in some ways, broke my spirit because I needed to move my RV, my recreational vehicle, from the place that it was parked. And uh, I had to have other people take my keys, hook up my truck to the RV, and then move it into long term storage so that I could heal and rehab. And just by virtue of other people uh, coming to my aid, it felt incredibly uncomfortable because I couldn't do it myself. That is just one way that it's been manifested very recently.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing with us the struggle that you're experiencing being sitting at the receiving end. When I was sharing a while ago about the wounding of love, the background that I was mentioning is that we weren't born broken. We weren't born wounded. As you could see, a child receiving or sitting at the receiving end with joy, with such grace, a child with their smile always speaking to the mother's eyes, saying, you are my light, you are my warmth. Without you, I don't know what's going to happen to me. That kind of expression and the joy of receiving help from others. It's part of who we are, and it's part of how we experience the world. And yet here you are, and maybe you can attach this to a number of uh, concepts and things that are important to you, um, being the person um, sitting on the giving end, someone who could provide, and someone who could offer things that would make a difference in this world. And I think it is a better place for you to be in that spot. And today we'll try to understand why it is hard. I mean, the meaning of uh, when things like this happen, sitting at the receiving end. What makes it difficult? What is the meaning behind this? What is the pain behind this? Do you have any reflection on that?
Um, the biggest part is that I feel vulnerable, allowing other people to be close. I'm not sure how to really verbalize it much past that, but when I'm doing something for somebody else, there is a sense of empowerment, feeling comfortable. When I'm on the receiving end, um, I feel very vulnerable, that people will see that I'm weak or that I can't handle it.
Yes. So, if people see you being vulnerable and weak, what does that mean to you?
It means that I'm not good enough, that I haven't been able to attain whatever stature that I want them to see. And then by virtue of what I'm learning is that that's actually how I see myself.
Okay. So here's what I'm hearing from you, Rod. There is a great desire for you to connect with people. And the way you connect with people is by your ability to offer, your ability to give, your ability to you are empowered when people see you as someone who's strong and someone who could provide and deliver. Here's the thing: as a child, especially when we were born, the way we connect with others is through our vulnerabilities. It's through our our nakedness, our weakness, our openness, and it's perfectly fine because as babies we do that, right? But that's the language we speak. For some reason, um, we still carry that. That just doesn't disappear as we grow and become uh, adults. That language remains there. The way we connect with others, um, we there is intimacy in vulnerability. But the problem is at some point, and I think you shared a little bit about the abuse and the story that you have experienced. Abuse is when that's a painful experience. Uh, Part of the pain in that experience is as the one who is being vulnerable, you know, uh, one who sits at the receiving end, uh, one who is so trusting, and one who is so loving. Um, that person, tracing from our the language to speak as children, we're so open to this world, and yet what we receive is instead of a pure, genuine love, all of a sudden that child experience abuse, for example, with all of their openness. Of course, there would be coping mechanism. It's gonna, the child that has to use and develop to protect themselves from that kind of experience. And part of the process is And part of the experience is getting this meaning and forming this meaning in life. Part of the meaning in that experience is I'm not good. I don't want to be weak, because being weak means, getting this information from the abuse experience, information that tells yourself that if you're weak, people will take advantage of you. If you're weak, that's something bad. It's a reflection of rejection, total being objectified is another way to experience being weak. So to combat that, to cope, and to get out of that space, you find a world where you are the strong one. You are the more powerful one, the one that could provide, the one that could deliver. And welcome to the imperfect world. In the imperfect world, that is the language we speak. The more you earn your badges, the more you earn your stripes, the more you would be loved and accepted. Um, and that is a new meaning and a new language that we speak. So, what happens? What happens when all of a sudden we lost our ability to deliver, ability to provide, to give, to be someone? Um, so then we're back. We're back to that unsafe place where, the meaning of being weak and vulnerable has been corrupted. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. And I can see throughout, the last 5 decades of different relationships and situations, and, whether that's career or marriage or, like you said earlier, even church and spiritual experiences of covering by trying to get the upper hand, being in control and not showing weakness or vulnerabilities.
Yes. And to me, what's mind blowing is when Jesus said, you have to go back, in a sense. You have to be converted like a child and find that original lens, that the lens that we use, the pure lens, the innocent freedom that we can embrace and see the world from that, the one that once was the very lens that was broken. So the healing is not to finally, you know, be strong and no longer vulnerable, so that you can conquer the world and use the upper hand, as you said, to connect with others. So this is a story of broken connection. The idea of the stronger we become, the more we could connect with others. I think on the surface, it might look like that. But when Jesus invited us to somewhat discover or rediscover this broken lens, unless you be converted like a child, the path, the path towards truth, the path towards, I think he used the word kingdom of heaven, which is a place ruled by love, that kind of principle. We have to go back to go through that lens, and if we would like to experience healing, it is allowing ourselves to heal that broken lens. So, in the few moments left that we have, maybe you could talk about what would that look like, experiencing the healing of that broken lens. So, but that is the very place that you don't want to be. See, that's what's challenging here. Um, because if you see, Rod, among those who were abused, study shows that those who have the uh, the opportunity to be hugged and to be embraced, right after the painful abusive experience that one had, If there was a person who cried with you, who joined you in that vulnerability, and who provided the kind of redeeming love at that moment, meaning the lens that was broken could also easily be restored at that moment if someone showed up to care for you, to love you, to say, you know what, you had just experienced a very bad experience, but this love, this form, says that the world is not always like this. But in the absence of that, if you're left alone, you will you will learn how to concretize the kind of the meaning and the experience that you had during those painful moments, and trying to make sense as a child. You would try to grow up right away with a belief that says the world can't be trusted. Well, you're right.
Mm.
The world, from that experience, it can't be trusted. But it doesn't necessarily mean that people can only connect with you, because when you say you can't connect with people unless you have the upper hand, that also says you can no longer trust people in
Mm.
general. You know, any thoughts from this discussion?
Yes, that is very true, and it was 13 years before I ever spoke about those events, and those 13 years till I reached the age of 23 were very traumatic because I didn't trust anybody, and didn't believe in myself, and then when I met my wife and finally had the courage to explain to her, the very first person ever to hear that, and her words to me were, "I can't understand what you went through, but I want you to know that I love you, and that whatever we face, that we will face together." And that was the turning point for me. That was just the beginning of feeling that love as just a human being, as just a person. Still a struggle, for those 37 years together. Um, uh, but it was still so impactful for me. And, now after her death, I'm having to look at that as just internally. How do I do that myself? And just maybe the best wording is self hugs, with this self love, just to continue that process.
Wow. Well, obviously she left a hole, because you have experienced um, something that would resemble unconditional love through your wife, but in her absence. So the question is, so how do you experience that? So so what? Take us there. How does self hug look like for you?
Part of it's verbal, which of course stems from my thoughts. Um, and, it took practice, if you will, to get to the point where I didn't feel love myself internally and didn't feel safe. And so, part of this is telling myself that I am safe, that I am strong, that I am courageous, that I can make it on my own, regardless of the external inputs. That I, still feel the need to have that kind of affirmation. So it starts there. Um, uh, that I am worthy, that I do matter to other people, but mostly that I matter to God first, and then to me second as a human being, and it's really leaning into that kind of a mindset, because if I convinced myself over the years that I was one thing, then I can convince myself with God's blessing. And strength to make that shift and to make that change.
Okay, so thank you for sharing that, because that is a very important part of the equation. your relationship with self. So, in your relationship with self, the self hug you're doing is to convince yourself that you're strong, okay, that you do matter. Okay, fine. Those are two different things, though. Okay, convincing yourself that you're strong is still connected to the philosophy that how you learn to operate your life. That unless you're strong, you can't connect, or you can't, you might experience rejection from others. Um, but the idea that you do matter, um, regardless if you're strong or not, so that's a different message. Because what's broken in your relationship with self is you also embrace the idea that if you're weak, you no longer matter. If you're weak and vulnerable, no one would love you. That is the belief in terms of your relationship with self, and that also translates in your relationship with others. So now that you are in a place where, and this is difficult, as you have shared, in a place where you are limited because of the accident that happened to you. It's something physical, but it transcends, it translates to something more than that, spiritual and emotional. You see yourself with less value, if not. I think the more you see yourself limited, the less value, the less you value yourself. And that's the relationship with self. So convincing yourself that you're strong is not gonna make it, because you were a child at one point with lack of limitation, with a lot of limitations. But it doesn't matter, because what makes you secure as a child is that you do belong. You are loved. You have an identity, that you're treasured, that you do matter. You know, that secures you. The question is, would that still secure you nowadays with the kind of philosophy that you learn to embrace? That is going back to childhood. No wonder, and let's close this with this wonderful affirmation that the Father gave to Jesus, the Son, when he was baptized. You are my child, whom I love, in whom I'm well pleased. Um, that is the only thing that matters in their relationship. Because when Christ was finally crucified on the cross, everybody was saying, "You don't matter. Why don't you why don't you demonstrate your power? Why don't you come down? Why don't you, you were feeding 5,000 people. You were raising people from dead. Now you no longer matter because you're crucified. You're so limited. The only thing that matters between father and son is what was mentioned. Not after feeding the 5,000, not after raising the dead, but during the submission of baptism, when the father said, "You are my son." That sense of belonging, whom I love, that's the connection. And I'm well pleased. That is you very important, regardless of what you do. You already matter. That is what we have as a child. That is the innate freedom, the innocent freedom, the birthright that we have from the Father. That is something that we continue to discover. You, me, and everyone else who lost our sense of innocent freedom.
Mhm. Wow.
Correct.
Um, so then, really, it's the strength that's in my weakness and accepting accepting that it's okay to be broken,
Mm-hmm.
because in reality, that's normal for humanity,
Mm-hmm.
and that I don't need to not only convince other people but convince myself of anything.
Yeah. Rod, thank you very much for being open and for being vulnerable right now. Thank you for those tears that I feel through your voice. Um, what are you feeling right now before we say goodbye to the audience? What are you feeling right now?
Wow. There's a sense of vulnerability in thinking about the depth of the hurt and the pain, but also in shifting the viewpoint, because I'm not used to it. And there's a certain level of uncomfortableness to that. But then, really in that is where the power is embracing that.
Well, let me thank you, because I can relate in the difficulty of being vulnerable. This is the effect of us embracing something that is no longer useful to us, thinking
Mm.
that that is the way how to thrive. But you're not alone in there. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for being open and being vulnerable. The very thing that you don't want to experience, and yet here you are offering it to me, and I hope to the rest of our audience. There is intimacy in brokenness. That remains a mystery to me, but it works that way.
Mm.
Folks, thank you very much for joining us. Let's thank Rod again for being here with us. Again, this is Jeff T.O. with our CCC Kinstsugi podcast. Again, the theme for today: there is intimacy in brokenness. We are not alone. God bless you all.